Although my notes are in Spanish, so I'll be translating everything. Well, yes, I'm Masha. I'm a neuroscientist, but I'm committed to science dissemination, not only about cannabis, but also about other health topics. And today I'm going to talk briefly about the neuroscience and the stigma around cannabis. So most of you have heard about the endocannabinoid system. I'm not going to go into many technical details, but just for having an overview, well, the endocannabinoid system is this net of structures and substances that are in our body with the aim of balance many physiological processes. Within this system, we have the receptors CB1 and CB2. CB1 mainly are located in the brain, and CB2 in the rest of the body, mainly in the immune system and peripheral organs. These receptors are like locks, and the cannabinoids are like keys. So when these keys get into the locks, then they open or close doors. That, in scientific terms, they activate or inhibit different processes. So first, I would like you to see all the areas in the brain that we have CB1 receptors. And as you can see, there are many areas, and that's why cannabis can modulate many different processes. Some people will say that THC has effects on these receptors and CBD doesn't, but it does. THC binds with these receptors. They open the door of these locks, and that's why you get a psychoactive effect, while CBD also binds, but instead of opening the door, it locks it, so it doesn't open. So that's why CBD can modulate the effects of THC, because it avoids the door to be open. So, but anyway, all this just for pointing out that despite of this interaction, these CB1 receptors were not developed by our bodies to interact with these molecules. They were developed to interact with an endogenous substance or molecule that we have, a tiny cannabinoid that we have in our brain, that is called anandamide. And anandamide is this molecule that has this name because ananda in Sanskrit means bliss. So, and it's not like, it's not a coincidence. It's because anandamide, when it binds to CB1 receptors, it causes this effect of wellness, of bliss. And I find fascinating why or how cannabis developed these molecules that can interact with the receptors that were created for anandamide. And in here, I would like to cite this doctor and professor of Harvard University, who in one article, very wisely, he described, the cannabis plant essentially works its effect by hijacking an ancient cellular machine. Ancient cellular machine. And I think he's right, because the endocannabinoid system has always been there. It's an ancient machinery that we just realized it existed because of cannabis. And so in many ways, cannabis is not creating an effect. It's just trying to help to bring back some balance into our body by using this ancient cellular machinery. And I think this is fundamental when we talk about the stigma around cannabis, because understanding how this system works can help us to realize that cannabis can be a tool for the benefit of our health and well-being. Although lately we hear a lot about how dangerous cannabis is. And it is true that cannabis can cause psychosis and other brain imbalances, but this is mainly when it's it's used heavily, or heavy users, and mainly with strains of cannabis that have a high content of THC. And I don't know about you, but I think nothing that you are a heavy user of does not imply a health risk. Because even taking a lot of sunlight can cause sunburn, and in some cases, cancer. But anyways, it's said that in many cases, mainly when there's a genetic predisposition or a high intake of cannabis, it can trigger symptoms of psychosis. And as you see in here, if you look into scientific articles about this topic, there are so many. But there are also about alcohol. And I don't see anybody or any country prohibiting or making a stigma around consumption of alcohol, because it also can cause psychosis, sometimes called alcoholic hallucinosis. But anyways, I really like that many countries are legalizing cannabis, because I think that all this bad reputation about cannabis it comes mainly from prejudice. And I think to reach that stage where we leave the stigma behind, we just need to spread and encourage information. Just to promote an informed decision of intake, just like we do with alcohol. So I find very curious or very interesting this situation about cannabis, because look at this article in a scientific journal. It talks about how this man cut off his penis during a psychosis caused by marijuana. And this is horrible. It's a tragic and terrible thing. But if you Google it, it's not the only report in a scientific journal. And I wonder how many cases of horrible things and violent things have happened in history because of alcohol consumption. And why, about that, they don't do these reports in journals, medicine journals. I find it very interesting. So, but well, I think it's also because we have normalized alcohol, so to an extent that nobody cares about making an article about it. But anyway, so if you're a heavy user, I suggest you lower your consumption, because you know what could happen. Or just switch to using CBD, hemp, from Canactiva. Because that doesn't cause psychosis. But anyways, despite all the stigma, I really love cannabis plant. I think it's an extraordinary plant, and I think it has a lot of potential. And personally, I owe it too much, because CBD helped my dog when he had a brain tumor, and THC helped my father with Alzheimer during the last years of his disease. And also all the wonderful people I have met in this industry. So cannabis, just like anything else in life, has a good side and a complicated side. So I think we should all encourage less prejudice and more information. And despite this talk is just a tiny grain of sand in this ocean of information, I really hope this helps to promote a free and responsible use of cannabis. And that's everything. So thank you.